The glimpse at magic number 70. Eyes closer to the final two races of round one as the series moves to America's heartland and the virtual Kansas Speedway, where we welcome you tonight to the penultimate race of round one in the 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Welcome to our coverage on Podium Esports presented by Elite Performance Industries, where alongside Rachel Whiteford in the broadcast booth, my name is Kenneth Bueno. We'll have Ryan Bauer producing us all night long using cameras provided by Dougie Beard, Nicholas Weatherby on our social media pages as well. Rachel, one thing is for certain, 2 shots left. Tonight, Charlotte, 1.5 mile tracks, top 70 at risk. So many things to consider in a track that's very fast and one that's going to be very crucial to make it in a round 2 later this year.
You know, if we weren't at this track, I'd say, well, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. But in this case, we actually are, so it means very distinctly different racing to what we're used to for a lot of these tracks. Now, being a mile and a half, we think the cookie cutter. Kansas doesn't race that way. Now, we might see them start out low, but this is definitely a track where we'll see towards the end of the race, or at least the end of a run, these guys run the high side the whole way around. Now, we've heard a lot of these guys are flat-footing this thing. This could make for a much more super speedway experience than we've had before. It could make for an interesting race.
And we've seen some of those similarities of the super speedway style racing, especially in the early runs from our previous trips to intermediate tracks in round 2 and round 3 of this round 1 schedule. To take a look, we've only got 2 races left as of tonight. Of course, when we conclude from America's Heartland, Kansas Speedway, we'll head to the Charlotte Motor Speedway just before Memorial Day weekend. We'll close off round 1, and then we'll take a short break before starting off round 2 with the top 70. Rachel, pretty much on the mark, 2 months since our last intermediate track race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Of course, if you can remember the photo finish between Seth the Merchant and Jordy Lopez Jr., but it's been a while since these guys have taken a trip to a track like this. So if you're one of those guys, especially on the cusp of the top 70, how do you attack these last 2 races knowing it's been a good amount of time since the last race in a similar fashion?
You attack it by giving it everything you've got. This is one of those tracks where a lot of people feel comfortable. The short tracks are specialist, and they present a different aspect of racing that's going to be really in the wheelhouse of those short track guys, the guys comfortable in a crowd, the guys who've really got that car control down. This, like Daytona, is a track where nearly anyone can really have a good chance. Now, you have to be fast, of course, and when most of these setups on these trucks let them go flat foot, it's going to be a who can get comfortable with their elbows out and who could really have the bravery. So this could be an opportunity. I think a lot of these guys on the cusp are going to say, this could be my chance. This in Charlotte, we're going to see riskier moves happen in these last 2 races than any other this group.
And what's going to help with the guys trying to find motives to get into the top 70? They're going to have a lot of options here from this Kansas Speedway. We'll take a look overhead from our images provided by Google Earth on our track map in Kansas City, Kansas. You'll find this Kansas Speedway, 1.5 miles, 2.4 kilometers. But the one thing about it that we'll know all night long is the progressive banking in the turns, 17 to 20 degrees. It means you can mount a run on the inside, tucked along the white line. But you can also go all the way up to that safer barrier, all the way to the top of the racetrack, and still get a run out of either turn 2 or turn 4. It's got 9 to 11 degrees on the tri-oval in the main straights, and it was opened back in 2001, one of the younger tracks on the NASCAR calendar. And of course, if you can recall, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series was just here a couple of days ago, so maybe there's some notes to be taken about this Kansas Speedway, although we've got different trucks at hand for this event. Rachel, we've got a very interesting race, 100 laps on tap, 150 miles, just over 240 kilometers. Of course, 3 green-white checkered attempts, no faster pairs, and the magic of the eNASCAR ladder is we've got open setup, so 100 laps isn't the longest, but it isn't the shortest on the calendar either, so there may just be an opportunity for these guys to play some strategy, but also not have to worry about it too much if it comes to that case.
Yeah, I think so, but one of the things to really factor in here is there's no runoff on the back straight. There's not even any grass, so if you lose it out of turn 2, or you get turned out of 2, you are going all the way into that wall. It's going to get messy real quick, and we do tend to get some decent-sized cautions here at this track, like a couple of the other ones, and it'll make it quite interesting, I think, for these drivers, but it's going to be the thing they have to really concern themselves with, is staying safe, because when it racks here, it racks big.
And you can remember Las Vegas, Atlanta, some of the crashes there, they've been rather big when guys get sideways. And with the nature of the super speedway, quote-unquote, style racing we may see at the start when these guys got good, fresh Goodyear Eagles on their shoes for these trucks, it's going to mean very big things if drivers can either avoid them or if they end up getting rather unlucky, getting caught up into the mess. And it may mean the end of their night and the end of the chance for a top 70 run. We've got a lot of things to consider over the course of this Kansas Speedway race, but for now, we'll take it trackside as the drivers are lined up behind the iRacing official pace car, and it's our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be lining up here tonight in race number 7 for the eNASCAR Road Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. It's Daniel Falkingham in the 12 with a 30.479. He's on the cusp of the top 70 going into tonight. This may be the run he needs at Kansas Speedway, followed by Seth the Merchant on the outside of row number 1. They'll be the first two to see the green flag tonight. Jonathan Delaney was the pole sitter a couple of weeks ago, one of our short track races. He starts inside of row number 2 in P3. Michael P. Frisch, who joined this top split series at Dover Motor Speedway just a couple of weeks back, he starts outside in P4. Daniel Budafoco in the 13 will start inside of the top 5, and Parker White, the winner at the Bristol Motor Speedway from a while back, he is P6 on that outside in that 4th row. Drew Freenage in the number 6 machine will be in P7. Will Cooley will be to his outside in P8 before you'll find the final drivers, Rachel in this top 10, Tyler Gary in the 10 or the 20, and Tucker Minter in the 5.
Yeah, you certainly will. And after that, of course, we have Kenny Brady, in 11th place. Boyd Hogan, that 8 truck, is in 12th. Behind them on row 7, it is Matt Danson in the 24. And on his outside, Jordi Lopez in the 4 truck at 14th. Behind them, row number 8, it's going to be Brandon McKissick and Andrew Navarro. Row number 9 is going to be Anthony Burrows and Alex McCullum in the 11 truck, of course. Row number 10 is Blaze Crawford in the 28 and Michael Cozy in the 14 truck.
Got to note some of those drivers within 11th on through 20th. Michael Cozy Jr., very good at the short tracks. He's been on a streak. Andrew Navarro winning at the Dover Motor Speedway just 2 weeks ago. It's Casey Tucker, Joel Blewett, 21st and 22nd, followed by Christopher Pfeffer in the 19. Justin Bolton, a former eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver. He's 24th on the outside of row number 12. Omar Diallo and Landon Huffman are the two lining up row number 13. First time we see Landon Huffman in the 34 truck in top split this season. Justin Norwood is 27th. Kyle Myers will be on his outside in row number 14 in P28. We'll have the final batch of drivers for you on the front of your screen. Larry Pace in 29th in the 23 truck. Trevor Edwards in 30th before you find Marcus Ruckman, Jake Nichols, Brad Davies, and Will Klein. The final 4 drivers, 31st through 34th, did not take time in qualifying, so it's going to be interesting to see them rally on from the back of the field. Let's take a look at the weather just before we get started. Track temp at a blistering 105 degrees, 67 degrees in the air. Wind southwest at about 2 miles per hour. It's a gorgeous afternoon in Sim, and it's a gorgeous view for Daniel Falkingham and Seth the Merchant. Green flag is in the air. Race 7 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series is underway.
Big start here, but everyone's fussing to get down to the bottom at the front end. We've got 3 wide further back in this field. You can just make it out there on the back of your screens. Everyone settles back down here for the run down the back straight for that first time. Big launch by Falkingham. Gotta say here though, Seth has got to be one of our big favourites here. This guy is quick.
Yeah, very fast indeed, but Jonathan Delaney got the best of him in the opening lap, and DeMerchant swung high in 3 and 4. So it allows the 13, Daniel Budafoco, to mount a run down low, although he's not going to make it happen. 3 wide as they come to turn 1. That's Michael P. Frisch on the very outside in the 21 truck. Got lodged out of line, and now he is left for dead. And Rachel, one thing about these 1.5-mile tracks is when you're tucked in side by side, it's usually the first and second line that are the fastest. If you take a chance to go all the way in that 3rd lane, especially in the first maybe 5 to 10 laps, you're basically going to be left stranded, and Michael P. Frisch draws all the way back to 13th because of that move.
Yeah, that was not a place you want to find yourself on lap 3 at Kansas. It's 3 wide on the outside. That is not a pretty picture, but it is plenty of time to go in this race. This is not going to be one that will be decided in the next 5 laps. So they've got time to really settle this and run their own race. We're seeing that 2nd lane really start to drop down, but everyone's staying relatively single file. Firstly, 7 trucks here. Everyone filing into position at the moment. And of our guys towards the front here, I gotta say Cooley, Hogan, Lopez Jr., the Merchant, Forkingham, they're all really, really potentials for the win.
And Will Cooley, we haven't seen him too much here in this top split. He's been hanging around the midfield, sometimes not having the luckiest of races, but right now in the opening 4 laps of this Kansas race, Will Cooley in the 31 already posing a potential charge here, tucked in just behind the 13 of Danny Budafoco, but right now going to hold in single file and not willing to take the risk so early on here, as pretty much the top, I'd say 7 through 8 have already gone single file. It looks like 8th on back is the first battle. Drew Freenarge in the 6th, Tyler Gary in the 20. It's the first side-by-side action you'll see before now. It's going to be non-existent, frankly, because Gary is going to tuck in, never mind, going to have a run now in turn 1. Well, not that middle lane, going to get to the outside of Parker White, so the middle lane going to work here, but also with the progressive banking, Rachel, again, there's going to be options available to you later in a long run at this Kansas Speedway, and for now, we're seeing a lot of guys tucked on the inside to that white line. Maybe later on, we're going to see some of those other guys start to venture up top, make their way to the very outside wall, and that's where the speed may be when this track starts to rubber in a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that happen later on in that first run at least, and definitely towards the end of this race. But for now, we're on that classic 1.5 mile line here at the bottom on turns and up top on the straights. Just classic cookie cutter racing. But this track does present a different challenge, of course. It's much smoother than a lot of other tracks. The surface is a lot slicker. Can definitely make the car feel very differently than you'd experience at somewhere like Charlotte with a different surface, but it also feels wider, I've got to say. This track feels considerably wider than places like Charlotte. I don't know why. It's about the same width, of course, in the actual racing surface, but I think it feels bigger when you're in the car.
And I was just about to say that the differences between what we're going to see here tonight, what we're going to see 2 weeks from now. Charlotte, it's the same length in kilometers and miles and has a bit of different banking, but it's mostly the same track. It just feels way more confined. This Kansas Speedway, way more open, and that's a good point you bring up. The lack of bumps, a very smooth surface. Of course, this track opened in 2001, and unlike its counterpart Chicagoland Speedway in Joliet, Illinois, which opened around the same time, this track has done a better job of holding its youthness. Chicagoland, you could tell it has some age, you could tell it has a lot of bumps and creases, and a lot of places that it can really punish the driver behind the wheel of a race car. Here in Kansas, you've got pretty much a smooth surface from start-finish line back around every single lap, so it also just changes the dynamic of how you have to wheel this truck around, and most importantly, how you're going to save the tires underneath the race car. We're going to see that often here, especially with the track temperature as blazing as it is at around the 105-degree mark to start this race. Seth the Merchant has been hot on the heels, chirping at your race leader, Daniel Falkingham, Rachel. Yet to build the move, and we talked about it pre-race with Seth the Merchant, very quick, one of the fastest drivers in this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, has a win to his belt, almost could have had a second at Atlanta Motor Speedway, but if there's one thing to know about the driver of this 3 tonight, is that he is one of the best at these intermediate style tracks, so no surprise he's running up front as well as he is right now.
Yeah, certainly is, and yeah, it's funny you mentioned Chicagoland. I often feel like racing that track feels like trying to take a midnight stroll in the south side of Chicago. No matter what happens, you're going to get stabbed or shot. But it's a rougher surface. It feels much more confined. There's never really a straight line on that track. You're always turning. Whereas this distinct, of course, straight here on the back of Kansas, and it's much flatter. It also feels broader. And yeah, it definitely feels like it's aged better, perhaps. But I think it's also less different. I think it's the classic cookie cutter, but this progressive banking, this little lower banking, really does aid it to feeling like a faster racetrack, which changes the dynamics so significantly from those higher bank tracks.
It's definitely true, and also with the smoothness, I mean, you mentioned it, the word slick. This track, although it is very smooth, although it doesn't really show a lot of its older age and a lot of the bumps and all that, it is still a very slick track. It is tough to manage this one, especially if you burn those rear tires, or if you even burn off the right front. It really will not treat you kindly if you punish this truck or any other race car you take to this Kansas Speedway. And you can take that note from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. A majority of the field pretty much breaking loose with the next-gen cars in the middle of the corner, and they understood just how slick the Kansas Speedway was for them at that point in time. So no doubt we may end up seeing the same scenario here in this race. And Rachel, we're already seeing a couple of guys start to flirt with that outside one. I mentioned it, 5 to 10 laps on a run. You can work that very bottom, but Daniel Budafoco leading the charge of guys running the very top on the progressive banking.
Yeah, we know that some of these guys can definitely flat foot this thing for a few laps, But about lap 4, I was hearing lifting, a lot of lifting from these guys. So they're all trying to preserve those tyres. They know it will matter a lot here. And we are seeing that high side working now. As the tyres start to get a little bit of age on them, and they are starting to drift up towards that top side. And it's going to punish those guys staying low, because they're going to find themselves out of the line.
And on the other end, it punished Daniel Buttafuoco, who mounted a charge on Seth the Merchant on the outside of 1 and 2, and then found his way through, then tried to work the inside on your leader, Daniel Falkingham, but found no success whatsoever, and he's going to fall back in the same place where he started that move from, exit of turn 2 in P3. Here comes the Merchant now to the inside. Daniel Falkingham will run all the way to the top of the progressive banking. It looks like he'll find the run out of turn 4. Actually, never mind. Seth the Merchant with a solid move. He now will tuck behind once again on the apron of the start-finish line. And Seth the Merchant is there, setting comparative lap times, if not just a bit faster than your leader, Daniel Falkingham. So the Merchant may be at the door and pushing in through it sooner than later, although Falkingham has already taken the approach to go high and avoid any of the attacks by the Logitech Gialtis esports machine. How about we take a look a little bit further back to the field? This is Tucker Minter currently in P6, a good run so far for the driver of the number 5, running the outside and trying to make this move on Jonathan Delaney to step into the top 5. As of now, Tucker Minter was the winner at the Richmond Raceway just earlier on this year on March 31st, and Tucker Minter pretty much just picking up where he left off, Rachel, on that Richmond win, just mounting up consistent finishes over consistent finishes, and going into this race, he's 4th in the point standings for the top 70, so pretty much he's a lock-in for round number 2.
Yeah, no one ever said you had to win anything to get through to the top series, of course, here. To qualify through this Road to Pro series, you don't got to win races. You got to score points. And that's something I think people also need to remember when it comes to championships, of course, in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola series. It's going to be literally about having consistent races. And if you can put those races together, you can get finishes. It's like baseball. Yeah, British person making baseball references. They get on base. They score points, you know?
I never thought you'd make a baseball reference.
Okay, I watched Moneyball last night, okay? I don't know why, but I did. So the reference of they get on base, it matters more. The statistic of he finishes races, it's what matters. He finishes top 10s. That's points. Points mean prizes.
That is true. Top 10s, top 5s, even top 15s, as long as you run consistently, it is going to give you points. And for a majority of these guys, especially from 1st through 10th in that top 70, they're practically locked into round 2. So many of them are just logging in these last 2 races, learning as much as they can, whether it be the relationship with their teams, the relationships with the setups, and how they get accustomed to them over time. And it basically is just repeating the rhythm that they've built since the start of this series at Daytona. So it is good to see them just logging in these final 2 races, but ultimately they're going to be seen at Mid-Ohio by the time we kick that off later this summer on Podium Esports, and they're going to be part of the top 70 running for the top 20 spots to get into the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series later in 2022. Got some nice battles around the midfield, one being a side-by-side battle. Jonathan Delaney, unfortunately, has fallen back a couple spots. He's now to 9th in that number 25 Chevy Silverado. He's under pressure by Matt Danson, who, Rachel, really didn't have the greatest race just 2 weeks ago and found himself in a crash at the Dover Motor Speedway. So just trying to pick things up here at this point in time. He's going to get to the outside. Kenny Brady also will follow suit. Delaney continuing to drop back through the top 10.
Yeah, not a great run for him so far. Short run truck, perhaps, maybe not quite as suited to the long run. I've noticed him, Falkingham and DeMerchant dropping low this time by, whereas behind them, Buttafuoco, Gary, they're running higher. So we're getting a real split now. And this could be where we see some trouble growing on the track, because we have almost an even split between high side trucks and low side trucks. And when they come back together at the corners, we can have little moments.
And you gotta also think maybe the bottom is good for tire saving, but the top very decent for a lot of the defensive position moves. And yes, you can mount great runs out of turn 2, turn 4, but if, let's say, a guy gets a good run on turn 2, they try to go to your bottom, try to go to the inside, and then you hold the outside lane in the next couple of corners, you're practically just playing simple defense. As long as you can hold the throttle and as long as you can mitigate any mistakes in the middle of the corner, you should be okay to hold your position. That's what Daniel Falkingham has been doing, flirting with the middle, flirting with the bottom, flirting with the outside, depending on who's running him down and who's trying to make a charge for the lead. It's just ultimately a case of scenario, and it looks like Danny Buttafuoco finally found a run to the inside, although could not make it complete there going into turn 3. Here comes Seth the Merchant once again. Will nose ahead in the middle of the corner. Will slide up, and Seth the Merchant almost will take the lead. Falkingham will fight back on the outside.
He'll go for that defensive line here. This could be strong, but they've both been running the low side here, that kind of tire-saving line, so we'll see what he does here. But it seems that 3 the Merchant really has the head of steam at the moment. Not going to be clear, though. Addo 2. Oh, huge run there. Look at that by Falkingham. Yeah, wow, just ahead of steam on the back straight.
Again, Falkingham just playing defense here on DeMerchant because DeMerchant really can't find a way around this number 12 Chevy Silverado. Yes, you can go to the outside, but it's a lot harder than it looks when he's basically right in front of you, taking that line away and putting you in his dirty air. So DeMerchant doing as hard as he can, at least to go to the bottom and try something, make the slide job work, and ultimately came to no avail. This time, Danny Budafoco will slide a little bit further down, diming the arc in 1 and 2. Trying to make a move for second, but that necessarily won't happen. And basically a majority of the field here, Rachel, already single file. And it took us basically, I'd say a lap, maybe 2 laps at Las Vegas, a similar 1.5-mile track, to get our first caution. And right now, everybody's settled into their muscle memory rhythm. It's all single file here. Not many drivers can make passes either, which is also stifling a bit when it comes down to how many yellows we're having so far, as Budafoco would dive to the inside.
Yeah, he'll dive down on the inside to take a look here. Up and over that 13, looking back towards the Merchant there on the high side. Squeezing his nose in there. We'll see if he's going to choose to stay up high here, as we've got the low side push by the 13 truck. Nearly a slide job, but not going to be for... Oh, it makes Falkingham dance there. He got a little excited, a little close, I think. That was more than he wanted to. The attempted slide job really was more of a slide trip.
Well, ultimately, I think, Rachel, if you're Falkingham, you don't want to see this at all. You don't want to see Budafoco or DeMerchant putting this pressure on you, because it forces you to step up a level. And Falkingham, let's say if he was maybe a second and a half in front of the field, he could relax a little bit, set his own pace, and more so worry about the strategy, worry about the long run strategy, instead of just holding these guys off. And it seems like he's doing plan B, holding these guys off, because they are really starting to challenge him significantly. This time, Budafoco will get a big run out of turn 4. Turn 1, slide in front of the 12 truck. And for now, Budafoco will hold the race lead, will slide up out of 2, and will take P1 away for a moment.
And he'll get it for the moment, but he's not going to hold this yet, because he's on the inside here still of Falkingham. And he's been trying this for a while. He might get a good run here. And not sure if he'll be fair enough to clear him. He will. The slide up will be complete, but undercut. Look at that dive. He lost so much momentum coming out of the corner there. The high side run by Falkingham was just so much, he just couldn't compete with it. High side's defensive line now. We're into that right phase of the race.
And they're both going to go bottom here too, Rachel. You see the middle taken by Budafoco, the very bottom taken by Falkingham. It's going to open the door back up for the 13 truck. So say hello to Budafoco once again, and maybe say hello to Seth the Merchant and Tyler Gary. Tyler Gary being one of the largest movers since the start of this race. He's +5 since the drop of the green on lap 1. And he's starting to reel in this top 3 as they've been battling lap after lap. So it is far from over, as Falkingham will nose ahead in turn 1, but Budafoco will main the outside as DeMerchant will fall through the middle.
Yeah, he certainly has right now, and these trucks really getting into warmer tire territory here. We're on lap 29, only a 30-lap run so far. It's been clean and green this whole time. I'm not trying to curse things, promise. No, these guys have put a really good run in here, so we're seeing the truck's long pace really come to show, and we're seeing Budafoco have a really, really good truck in this late race, but it's not completely all his way either. It has been a good run. Boyd as well, Hogan, is having a good run right now. He's up 5 spots right now to 7th place from 12th. And other big movers, Casey Tucker, 21st to 13th. This long run is favouring some of these guys quite a lot, but this is green. This will change the dynamic entirely.
Definitely true. And also, we had talked about it a couple of races ago, the trade-off you would have to have if you're a setup builder, or even if you're a driver building your own setup and helping your team, is that if you want to have a long run truck, or you want to have a short run truck, or if you want to have one that can kind of work better in the middle and not be great on the short run or long run, but can really hit the sweet spot down in the middle. And it looks like we're seeing a lot of those long run trucks start to come up through the field. You talk about the Tyler Garys, you talk about the Casey Tuckers, you talk about the Boyd Hogans, all these guys that are now starting to get the track rubbered in, they're starting to get the truck settled, and the setup is really working in their favor. And then some of the guys who had fallen off on the short run, falling off still on the long run here. Some guys that have really haven't been able to pick up the pace as of the first 31 laps, and we're going to see the progression happen even further out, especially in different lanes, because Boyd Hogan has been all the way at the bottom. Now it looks like Seth the Merchant will look to the bottom. A couple more Logitech G Altus Esports trucks have tried different lanes across the Kansas speedways, so ultimately the setups are coming to fruition here over the first run, as the Merchant will dive once again underneath Falkingham, but cannot get a good enough charge to slide in front of the 12, who stays side by side, and Burafoco will be smiling ear to ear because of it.
Yeah, I think he will right now. He's definitely got this phase of the race in his back, but the Merchant really starting to fight now with Falkingham. This could, like I say, help him, but I think we're seeing Falkingham more slow down, because look how much everyone's grouped up here.
Yeah, Falkingham still trying to hold off the pressure, and Tyler Gary is ultimately going to come sooner than later, alongside with Tucker Minter, Boyd Hogan, Jordy Lopez Jr. All of these guys right now tucked within a little small group. Add in also Drew Freenarge and Kenny Brady, 8th and 9th on the racetrack. They are basically the last two trucks in this group right now that have tucked alongside your race leaders. So if any mistake arises out of maybe DeMerchant, maybe Falkingham, or maybe even your race leader, Daniel Burafoco, there's going to be guys to pick up the pieces. And these guys have been rather patient, Rachel, so I think the patience is going to be a virtue here, waiting for these guys to do all the dirty work and sort of beat their own trucks up, if you could say that, and then just pick up whatever is left and take opportunity when they can.
Yeah, I think people don't have faith enough in the long run sometimes at tracks like this, and it's showing you here it's working. It's paying off to do so, and patience in a long run truck, if you could expect it to stay green, could be a huge advantage. And I think this is definitely a gamble, because he wasn't that quick on the short run, but right now it's paying. It just depends if we keep this way.
So DeMerchant again will look to the inside. DeMerchant has been relentless on this bottom side, but maybe it could just be a tire saving method, although every single time he goes to the bottom, he ends up alongside this 12 for second and just continues to stifle the run to Daniel Burafoco, who's just only holding his gap at about 0.2 of a second. Hasn't grown, hasn't lost by a significant amount of time. He's just been there holding the lead, and that at the moment is good enough, as these guys again will go side by side. DeMerchant will hold space to the 12, and they will remain door to door. Tyler Gary has yet to make a move on either one of these guys, so who knows here. But we see drivers, or rather we hear drivers saying they're going to come down pit road. Seth DeMerchant being one of them. Looks like Tucker Minter, his teammate, will follow suit. Minter will go for a slide. He's going to be able to save it just behind his teammate. A couple more Logitech G Altus Esports trucks in, include Jordy Lopez Jr., Matt Danson. So a collective effort here, Rachel, to come into pit road, lap 37.
Yeah, it's kind of the opening of the window here. Time to make something happen would be now, and this will help get you out of traffic. Remember, the likes of the Merchant was in some pretty hefty traffic with guys coming up behind him, guys ahead of him, so brave opportunity, good time to do this, get some clean air. And here comes Burafoco and Falkingham, Gary. Big woe-ups there by these guys diving down pit road.
A lot of guys sliding in, locking up the brakes, but fortunately it appears most of them have come close to pit road speed limit, and they will escape without any sort of penalties. That is your leader, Daniel Burafoco, who just came in along with Tyler Gary. Lee Boyd Hogan is in that group. Michael B. Frisch is in there. Anthony Burrows. There's a lot more that are included in that group. Daniel Falkingham, it looks like now he's going to be able to stop on pit road, although he's really going to be the only one to do so by himself. Drew Freenarge is going to lead this race as a result, and all of the Logitech G Altus Esports trucks are going to be all collectively together in this rain. Rachel, what can we say more about this Logitech G Altus Esports group and how good and consistent they've been, not only working independently up at the front, but working together when it matters. And all these guys pretty much on the same strategy, now on the freshest tires of the field, practically punching their way through the field.
This is a big deal because you have team trucks together, team trucks that can work together and aren't going to fight each other right now at least, and they can stay on the same strategy, so you don't get too slow. You get to have guys around you who are on the same strategy. It's huge. This team has shown you what teamwork can do, and this should be a real threat to some of the guys in Contenders and in Coca-Cola, because team power is big, done right.
And we've seen the fruits of their labor come to a lot of great finishes, a lot of great wins. And I mean, you think back to the last intermediate track, Atlanta Motor Speedway, the photo finish was between two teammates, Seth the Merchant, Jordy Lopez Jr. So no matter what, no matter where they finished, it was going to be a good end result nonetheless for either of them. Here come the Logitech Gialtis Esports trucks. They're going to swoon around your race leader. That's Will Cooley in the 31, who has stayed out. Jonathan Delaney in a side-by-side battle with him. Delaney will take over the race lead for now. But of course, all these guys on a 41-lap stint from first all the way down to 7. Justin Norwood in the 32. So all of them yet to pit. They're going to have to make this stop sooner than later. And frankly, it may work out in their favor if they can overcome the pressure from all the guys who have pitted earlier. Looks like your leader will not come in, and it's just a gaggle of trucks, Rachel. Everybody trying to unlap themselves. Guys trying to settle in on the runs before they come to pit road. It's just a huge mess of cars back to turn 1.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Huge near misses there. Boyd Hogan nearly took somebody out, so it's definitely getting a little bit spicy. 3 wide there on the track. Why not? Let's do this. Yeah, let's have 3 wide on 3 different tire strategies. That never goes wrong.
And all of these guys mostly on 3-lap-old tires. Falkingham in it, one of the former race leaders and pretty much your pole sitter tonight on the cusp of the top 70, just looking for a solid run to lock himself into round 2 later this summer. It got very close between all 3 of them, and actually almost all 4 of them if you count Brandon McKissick, who's kind of tailed alongside these guys behind. Unfortunately, they all get back single file. They're going to be able to hold their own just in front of your current race leader, Jonathan Delaney, in the 25 truck. He is still yet to pit. All these guys pretty much first through 7. They are not electing to come in. Maybe Delaney will take a look. No, he won't. We'll let some of the trucks by. And maybe here, Rachel, potential one-stop strategy. We're 43 laps in. If you can at least pit at lap 50, chances are you can stretch another long run, maybe get a caution, maybe get some extra reassurance. And it could send you to lap 100 and the home mark of this race in a very good spot, as opposed to taking 2 stops and losing more time.
It's brave, it's different, and it's worth a crack if you're in Delaney's position perhaps, but it's a risk. I think a caution would hurt it more than anything else, because you will end up in a disadvantageous position if you go for this strategy and it does not stay green.
So for them, they're going to stay out. As for the guys who theoretically would take net P1 away, as you see 3 wide between a bunch of trucks around your leader, Jonathan Delaney, I figure the caution may come out of here if somebody makes a mistake on the fresh tires around the old trucks that are just trying to swamp around this Kansas Speedway, waiting for the chance for that one-stop strategy. Seth the Merchant is in net P1. They have unlapped themselves. The Logitech Gialtis Esports truck. They also brought in Daniel Budofoko, your former race leader. They're all on a 4-truck train, just kind of riding around the very bottom of the track trying to save tires. And ultimately, when all these guys who are looking for the one-stop will come down pit road, the distance may be good enough for them to have a healthy lead over Delaney and company by the time that Delaney ends up stepping down for some 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and some fuel. But Rachel, this is probably one of the most pressure-filled situations you could be in, especially now that Parker White has closed in behind. This would be for the current race lead between 2 old-tire trucks. It's just so hard to let all the fresh tire guys by and not really create any large trouble for them, while also trying to hold your own ground as Parker White would go to the inside for the lead.
Yeah, goes for that move there on Delaney, but not really hit Delaney's concern right now, I think, at the moment. As, yeah, no, it's... I think this will entirely depend on how the second half of the race goes. Right now, we're seeing a really long green run, and this is an impressive opportunity. But that all depends on it staying this way. A whole green race at Kansas, I don't think I believe that.
You know what? I don't even want to say anything, because I know Dover, I tweeted it right after the race that I had said, oh, we're on a long green flag run, potential for a caution, and then they crashed on the back straightaway. So I'm not going to say anything, and I'm not going to let the world say blame Bueno once again. Justin Norwood has also hit pit road. Larry Pace would do the same this time by. It looks like Pace has just overshot his pit stall, so he's going to lose a little bit more time in his Toyota Tundra TRD Pro. He's pretty much the only guy on pit road, apart from a couple others. I think Michael Frisch is coming in once again. Indeed, I believe, yes, it is. This truck, TRD Pro, has been on pit road once before. Maybe an unscheduled pit stop here for the driver of the 21.
Yeah, maybe a speeding penalty, perhaps, from his last run down, so it's hard to tell.
And the 21 was in on lap 38 of this race, and now he's in once again at lap 49, and it appears, yes, indeed, Rachel, you may be right, a penalty issued to Michael P. Frisch, who joined Top Split just 2 weeks ago at the Monster Mile Dover Motor Speedway, making his second start in this Top Split series in 2022. So that's going to hurt him dearly. It looks like it's going to put him a lap down as Parker White has gapped Jonathan Delaney by about 1.8 seconds. And now here comes the group of guys into pit road. Marcus Ruckman, it looks like Will Cooley, Landon Hoffman coming in. So basically all of the drivers, Rachel, that were staying out, holding out hope, now they're entering the pit lane. And you got to ask the question whether Parker White and Jonathan Delaney would do the same. Answer for Delaney will be yes. Same deal for your leader, Parker White, who comes in.
Yeah, now's really the time they got to go. Lap 50, they've made it halfway. They can push this thing. I think they'll lose time. I think maybe a caution will not help. No, a caution will help them. They need a caution. At least one caution late in the race, and they're set. No caution, and they're just going to be too slow on these dead tires that they'll have gotten lost with these positions to these other guys. So I think it's going to be a tough call.
It is going to be a tough call, and it's also going to have a problem maybe later in this race because you extended just 50 laps on fuel and tires. The tires more so wore off than the fuel. The fuel obviously is a concern, but for at least here, if you can make it 50 laps in this first stint, chances are you're going to make 50 laps in this next stint to go all the way to lap 100. The tires, they're going to be the biggest factor ultimately because these guys pitted around lap 31, 32, which is roughly a third through this race. Really, the first 25% of this race, just a little bit over that. So in that case, these guys are going to come down again. They're going to have fresh rubber. And then by the time you're trying to stay out for lap 100, you're theoretically not pitting again. So you're going to have to hold yourself and hold yourself tight with a lot of pace ahead of these guys with a gap on old tires and a truck that's pretty much just asking you to put fuel and tires in it all the way at the end. So we don't know, Rachel, if that one-stop strategy is ultimately going to work because these guys, although they are losing some more time practically by going 2 stops, they're going to have fresher tires and they're going to be okay on fuel on that mark. So it's a risky strategy by Delaney and company, and it's going to be really tough to make that strategy work. Although we've seen T-Rez do it before at Vegas, so who knows?
You know, we're just going to let Kenneth have a talk for a minute because I'm going to go away and do some math and see what that tells us.
You know what? I've never been a math major. I've never been a math major. I am terrible at math. I don't think I've been good. I've been very wrong in these calls for strategy, so I have no idea ultimately. But it is going to look like a risky call for these guys as Danny Budofoco will step down to the inside. He's going to get underneath Jordi Lopez Jr. will take that position away. So I think Danny Budofoco senses it's go time right now since they have taken the current race lead away from the drivers who had stayed out so long to lap 50. And Budofoco now starting to press a charge here against the 2 Logitech Gialtis Esports trucks, Tucker Minter, Seth the Merchant, who currently lead this race. So as we continue race number 7, for the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series, we'll remind you that our coverage is brought to you by Elite Performance Industries, your home for iRacing setups, apparel, and driver development. Contact the EPI social media pages to get in touch and learn from guys like eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion Michael Conti. For more information, visit ElitePerformanceIndustries.com. EPI, your home for all things iRacing.
So,
46 to go, Rachel. You got some math?
This is rough bar mat math here. So the lap times will take two trucks here. Seth the Merchant will take Delaney. Okay. Delaney is running in the 32s for about 3/4 of his stint, and he's running in the 5s, 6s, occasionally 7s, but the lower end, let's say, of that bracket. Now we take a look at Delaney. And for his 50 laps by pit-in, he was running 32.9s, so 4/10 slower than the Merchant. Now, based on the number of laps he's doing that compared to where he was running more evenly, that's about from lap 25 up to about lap 50. So he's spending half of his lap time out there running a couple of tenths, 3/4 of a second slower. The pit stop time in this race is looking to be 11-12 seconds in the box. Your pit road time, you're talking about an extra 30 seconds on your lap time, correct? So numerically it works. It does work. It's just asking the racing gods for a green race flag to flag, and you actually have got a prayer with this. A really good prayer.
Yeah, you need a prayer here, and it's also what makes things worse here is when you go 50 laps on a stint, at least from what I've noticed, is that basically everybody who was lapped, that they got fresh tires and these guys were staying out, they had all unlapped themselves. That's why you saw the gang of trucks all around each trucks 3 wide. And so these guys are going to pit. Delaney and company are going to stay out, but they're 30th on back. I think the highest runner is Parker White right now, who is 27th, all by himself on the back straightaway. So yes, these guys will come down pit road again, and they will lose time. But I think it may just be a little bit worse, the gap to close in for the ones who want to stay out all the way to lap 100. And it may not be enough to just stay in the race lead just because these guys are so far out ahead because they already unlapped themselves in that first run. It may be almost impossible for those guys to come back in it. I'm not sure, but it looks to be that way.
Some trucks that have got people around them, like we've got Delaney, Huffman, and Cooley, who are in threesome there. They've got an opportunity to maybe keep pace here, but the lap times aren't hugely different. The track position, yes, is to an extent, but you got to think they unlapped themselves, but they didn't catch back up again. So yeah, it looks like oh yeah, they're going to be out of position, but the gap's going to be much smaller this time by. But the big problem though to consider, track's hotter by lap 100 than it is on lap 50. Those old tires are going to feel twice as old.
That's definitely true, and the track temperature really hasn't dropped all too much. It's only been -3 since we dropped the green flag. It was 105 degrees on the track temperature when we started. It's now still in the triple-digit range, 102 degrees on the racetrack as of lap 61 with 40 laps to go. So it is only going to get worse at the end when the tires start to wear off and the track temperature really doesn't start to cool down all too much. You kind of need that relationship to work very efficiently in your favor in order to hold on to those Goodyear Eagles and have a little bit more life in them by the end of your run. So we'll see how it pans out for them right now, but for the guys up at the front of the field, we've seen a couple of good battles around this pack. Daniel Buttafogo has been trying to get underneath the 5 of Tucker Minter. He's run the inside a couple of times, but really hasn't found any significant success, so he's tucked back in 3rd. 4th on back, really, Rachel, is where you're finding the chaos. Daniel Falkingham, Tyler Gary, Boyd Hogan, Jordy Lopez Jr., Brandon McKissick, Kenny Brady, bunch of guys going side by side, all packed in with each other. And what makes things even worse for the 27, Jonathan Delaney, he's basically behind them, or in front of them. So he's getting lapped by these guys at the moment. And it only makes things more sketchy.
Yeah, that's not ideal for Delaney. That will put things in a really tricky spot. But it's taken him this many laps with the cycle, so I don't know. It's... What are we on lap right now? We're lap 63, so that's 14 laps basically ballpark from what we've been looking at. I don't think it affects the strategy. It just doesn't look good now. But I tell you what, the front 4 here, Merchant, Minter, Buttafogo, 3, they're having a wonderful time. Back here, they're doing silly stuff. This is getting kind of crazy back here, so it's like a barroom C fixed down in this second pack, and I'm a little bit concerned with how some of these trucks are moving.
It's looking exactly like the first couple laps, Rachel, no doubt about it, where they're all packed in side by side, 2 different lanes being played, except now it's further up the hill on the racetrack than it was when we started, where everyone was all the way at the bottom. Now they're all the way at the top. Boyd Hogan trying to take advantage of the Toyota up top in Tyler Gary. That is going to be a pass for 5th if Hogan can complete it. A bunch of trucks all through there. We'll keep you updated as we move forward. But we will also remind you that our coverage tonight of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series is brought to you by Battle Beaver. Battle Beaver has everything you need for your next professionally modded custom controller. With options for PlayStation, Xbox, GameCube, and more, Battle Beaver has everything you need to elevate your gaming potential. Head to BattleBeaverCustoms.com to customize your controller today. So still side by side between Boyd Hogan, Tyler Gary. Bring in Brandon McKissick, who Rachel has done a solid job moving through this field. Started 15th. He's now up through 7th. He's one of our largest chargers. And now we're hearing calls over the radio, Boyd Hogan being one of them, hitting. So these guys are going to come in for their second batch of pit stops a lot earlier than the first stint. Only 28 laps into the run for them.
Yeah, this is a little bit shorter, so that's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think they know they can make it the whole way. On this, it's just going to feel a little bit rougher. So, good timing to do it with track position. They'll come out in clean air, I believe, from this run. So, that'll be one to watch.
It is going to be one to watch for sure. So, it's only really 3 trucks that come in. Jordy Lopez Jr., Boyd Hogan, There's a third truck in there as well. Kenny Brady in the 10. There's a fourth further back on. It looks to be Trevor Edwards in the 22. And now we're hearing more calls from drivers up at the front. Pitting. So they're also going to try to step into pit road. For now, it looks like Anthony Burrows, he's going to go for a slide. Same deal for the truck just behind him. It looks to be Casey Tucker. We'll have, I believe, another one coming in, Brad Davies, and Burrows will go for a slide just behind Brad Davies. I'm not sure if that will be a pit road speeding penalty or a pit road entry penalty by that means, but Burrows with a very sketchy entry into pit road trying to lock up the brakes. I think picked up some damage from that as well.
Yeah, that's not how you pit in. So we're seeing the likes of Forkingham and Botafogo hitting pit road right now, and that got tight as well. Entering pit road, so these guys need to be a little more careful with this.
So there's a 13, Botafogo in, followed by the 12. There's a look at some of the other trucks that are coming out. Brad Davies, Casey Tucker, Burrows is going to be stuck on pit road. So I believe indeed, yes, this is a penalty for the 9 of Anthony Burrows. His Ford F-150 is beached onto his pit stall. He's falling one lap down. 33rd on the racetrack. Look at Seth Merchant with an aggressive slide into pit road. Rachel, I don't know if that will be a speeding penalty by any stretch of the imagination, but Merchant kept it as close as possible, and that could basically take his race away if he gets a penalty here.
Oh gosh, it could. It wasn't just him, though. It was one of the Logitech trucks behind him as well. I think all those guys lost the memo, but he did worry up more than the limiter, I think, in that first sector, because you saw him pick up the speed a little bit as he entered the second sector there. We'll find out, of course, how long he's on pit road, but oh, that was a sketchy entry, and rest in peace, Green Cone. This is a long stop. No.
Yes, this is a penalty, it looks like.
Yeah,
for the Merchant.
He's got a penalty.
So he's coming in once again. Now we'll launch off, and that is a huge hit for Merchant's race here at the Kansas Speedway. There's Falkingham trying to unlap himself. Justin Bolton in his Ford F-150 is your current race leader, and now we will see how the one-stop guys are faring. Delaney was lapped on the racetrack. Maybe he can find his way back in it, but it doesn't look to be the case. Bolton now will slow down for pit road, a much more conservative entry than your race leader. Joel Blewett will take over the lead for now. I mean, Seth Merchant, I think, Rachel, you got to thank your lucky stars if you're Merchant. You can take that risk because you're so far up in point standings that it really won't matter by the end of round number 1. But to have a race potentially lost like that certainly hurts.
Oh, he's good. He knows he's good. It's annoying, but he'll manage. You know, he's in one of those situations where he's absolutely fine with this. So it's rough. It's going to suck for him, but he's not in trouble with the points.
So here comes Joel Blewett in the 2 truck. He was one of the guys, or one of the last ones really, to pit on the 2-stop strategy, and that leaves Parker White, the one up front in the 1-stop category. Larry Pace, Marcus Ruckman, Landon Huffman among the guys in that group. It's basically 4 trucks in this group, and that's it. The problem though, Rachel, now there's fresh tire trucks really starting to take the charge. Botafogo, Hogan, Jordy Lopez, Kenny Brady, they're on a large pack, 5th on back. They already got over the driver of the number, whichever one of the ones that stayed out here. I believe Hogan had just gone by Landon Huffman here, the 34, and just identifying exactly who that was. Huffman in his Chevy Silverado. So they are slowly but surely peeking through the field, and that's going to spell danger here for Parker White and company behind.
Yeah, it really is. That's not a great position for those guys. This shakes up things a little bit more than we expected, I think. And we're going to see a different kind of dynamic here towards the front, but it's going to be between these 2 trucks at the moment, I think. These guys have been pushing really hard, but we're seeing this cycle push through. Parker White's out front. We'll see now what the math will do for him here, because this will change things. Either way, though, right now, it's going to be White out front with Hogan. Botafogo from his cycle. This is how quickly he's back towards the front here. Although, looking at Daniel Botafogo, his last pit in was on 6 laps ago. So, yeah, this is showing how quickly maybe that strategy has fallen down with how the track's wearing down his tires.
Yeah, Larry Pace has fallen back to 7th. Daniel Botafogo is the second one here behind Boyd Hogan, and they're closing in on Parker White now under about 5 seconds on the racetrack with 25 laps to go. So if you're Parker White, you know you've already settled into the strategy. You're already way too deep in this blueprint plan. That, at this point, you're just going to have to brace for impact and do the best you can to hold your pace, do the best you can to stay up front, and just gather whatever position you can. Of course, I believe Parker White will be able to make it to round 2 without a problem in point standing. So, I mean, this risk is going to be worth it if he can get to the race win, if something happens, but ultimately he's going to be okay with what he's got by the time the checkered flag waves tonight. Just a reminder that our coverage tonight is also brought to you by Boosted.biz. Boosted builds a custom platform for your brand to sell your products. They take care of everything, you can pay nothing, and let them handle the rest. To get started with your online store, visit Boosted.biz today. 3 seconds flat, Rachel Whiteford. Daniel Budofoco has just passed Boyd Hogan for second on the racetrack. Parker White is only just looking in the rearview mirror more and more by every passing turn around this Kansas Speedway. And these three trucks may be the ones we look at, the pillars for the race win tonight at Kansas.
Yeah, this could be it, and I think it really has shown us just how fast this race is going to be for us, as this is definitely not the race I expected by a metric and a half. I really thought we'd see a much rougher race in this, and these guys are putting on a really good show here, and Budofoco has been really impressive with this. I thought he had just a long run truck, but it seems like that's exactly what he needed.
And he's had pace, no doubt, all night long, out of seemingly coming out of nowhere. Falkingham, no surprise that he's got a lot of this pace. Started up front and has pretty much kept himself up there since the drop of the green flag. Boyd Hogan, also another name we didn't talk about too much, who started back in P12, kind of hanging around the mid-pack, hanging around the top 10, but now is his opportunity to step up and take charge here. They're now 0.8 of a second away from Parker White. They can see him closing in closer and closer by every little bit of ground. This time, 20 laps to go for the virtual Kansas Speedway. Budofoco holding up top. Falkingham trying to attack down low. And here will come the battle for the lead, the change. Here comes Budofoco to the outside of Parker White.
Big move here. This is the lead of the race. Different strategies, of course. Let's not forget that. And this will definitely be how I think these guys will see this run to the end here. White's strategy play, I don't think it's paid off with his speed.
And it has been intense for these guys up at the front of the field. Parker White now falls to third and will definitely fall back to fourth. It's only a question of matter whether he will fall back fifth on back, or really how far he will step down in the running order based on the old tires. Boyd Hogan will go by. Parker White now on 30-lap-old Goodyear Eagles running the very bottom. Jordy Lopez Jr., Keddy Brady among the guys that are trying to get back into the game, catch Boyd Hogan, and seemingly make it more of a 5-truck, 6-truck race to the finish. But here's the focus. Daniel Falkingham, that time, set a 31.783. Your leader, Budofoco, set a 31.8. So Rachel, Falkingham is closing, and closing very, very fast.
Yeah, he is. This will be one to keep an eye on here with how he's running. Just right up there on the back of Budofoco, and I thought he had a long run truck. Falkingham seemed short run at the start of the thing. He was slightly slower, whereas now he definitely seems to maybe have somehow found a second wind. Changes on his pit stop, maybe?
As well. Yeah, you also got to think, Rachel, the fact of the matter when it comes to passing, we haven't really seen a lot of passes made over one turn and one little section of track. It's more so a methodical process, maybe 1, 2, 3 laps before you actually make a pass. If you're Falkingham here, do you try to be patient, or do you want to force the issue on Budofoco and make him make a mistake?
No, I wait. If I found this switch speed, I know he's got a long run truck, so I'm gonna try and find an opportunity, but I don't think he could force a mistake. We didn't see that last run, so I don't think he'd expect it this time by either.
So this time, 17 laps to go. We'll close in on 16 laps remaining. Tucker Minter has just swooped in front of Boyd Hogan, so change that position for third. Tucker Minter might have enough time to close in on your top 2 as he set the fastest lap out of your top 3 that time through. Tucker Minter may be a horse in this fight, maybe after all, in the final segment of the race. But Budofoco, Falkingham still single file 1-2. And it's just all about who's going to pull the trigger first, who's going to try and get that first punch in. And Falkingham has yet to release the punch just yet, has yet to put the energy into Burafoco for the race lead. And they're just holding their ground, very top of the racetrack. Nobody's switching the line just yet.
No, not yet at all, and it's still holding true. I don't think a mistake is what we're looking for in this one. But you don't want to make a pass that lasts too long, because it'll bring Minter and Hogan and Lopez into this thing. Jordi Lopez Jr. will always sling a move if you can get a chance.
It's definitely true. Right now, making a move for P5 on the racetrack. That's Tyler Gary working underneath his Toyota Tundra, trying to make a move down low. Same deal for the battle, even behind them. Brandon McKissick. Right now, that's Kenny Brady in the 10 on the top, the 30 of McKissick down low. So that's some good side-by-side battles, even further back in, off the focus of the race leaders. And even 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them single file, and pretty much everybody fifth on pack are all just trying to scrapple for position. Looks like McKissick will find a way underneath Kenny Brady. Brady will tuck out of line there on the trial. Will just hold his ground there in the final 13 and just at least get a good finish in. And a lot of these guys, Rachel, some of them looking for better run after the short track stint that started at Richmond on March 31st, and some of them just trying to etch their way into the top 70 and just make it official. I feel like that's what's going to be the biggest thing here of this Kansas race. It's just making yourself official for round 2. It's not about getting in by a couple of points. At least for some of them it is, but for most of them, it's about just staying above the cut line, holding the insurance tightly close to you, and just making sure you can get in. A win would mean everything, but even a solid finish here, as long as you can keep your truck stable and in one piece, you'll be advancing to round 2 by the time you end Charlotte 2 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, I think you can be in that place, but I think the guys who are close but not quite are a bit further back in this thing. The guys who are up front here, they're mostly all locked. It's not really a concern for them, so it's a good race, but there isn't to throw it away either.
Again, the battle now creeping up through P5. Jordi Lopez trying to hold his ground against 2 trucks now. Brandon McKissick down the 30. He's really picked up speed in this later portion of the run. That's Boyd Hogan right in front of them. Tyler Gary just on the outside, just behind this number 4 of Jordi Lopez Jr. So a 3-truck battle here. McKissick just trying to pick up as many spots as he can in the final 12. Although it doesn't look like it will be enough to get to the race leaders. Just going to add some more points to his tally. And McKissick going to slide down once again underneath Jordi Lopez Jr. this time by. Will not have the opportunity to make this pass. McKissick coming into this race second in the RTP point standings. So, of course, no doubt he will be a part of round 2 later this summer. And just only trying to continue his ground. But now, actually, Rachel, we've got 3 trucks in the battle for the lead. Tucker Minter has closed in inside now on Daniel Burafoco, or rather Daniel Falkingham behind Daniel Burafoco. And Minter may spoil the party after all.
Yeah, he might actually get involved in this party. This has definitely spiced things up amongst our leaders. They managed to break away, and somehow they're also they go for this. I'm surprised, actually, that these guys this clear are going to just push this hard, but why not, huh? What is racing without some racing? We're 10 to go here. Now it's time to really try and decide this thing. Has Falkingham got anything in the tank, or is Minter going to be the surprise horse here?
And if you can look at this top 3, Daniel Burafoco has been close. He's won some eNASCAR College iRacing Series races, but he's never been in victory lane in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series. Falkingham has also not won a race this season. Minter is the only one out of really the top 5 up to the top 6 before 7th place Jordi Lopez to have a win in this 2022 campaign. So there is more to gain here if you're first or second now, the 13 and the 12. Then if you are Tucker Minter here, he's going to end up high. Daniel Falkingham will make a crossover down low, and it's only helping the case for Burafoco this time. 8 laps to go from Kansas.
Oh, Minter close, a bit of a touch there with the 12 of Falkingham. That was a little bit close for comfort, especially with this far out ahead. We've got about 1.7 seconds to Boyd Hogan back behind him, so you screw around up here. You're going to bring him into this fight, and he will use his elbows. So, Burafoco has a bit of a moment right now of clarity, a bit of space in the track. I think maybe a bit of a wall touch that by Falkingham. I'm not quite sure there. No, it was just quite there. But yeah, Minter might actually decide this race, and it might not be in his favor.
McKissick has cleared for fourth. Here comes Tucker Minter again to the inside, peeking low on Daniel Falkingham, but he cannot find the run. He's been using the inside to his advantage at some point, but again, will just tuck up to the high side. This time through, understands he's going to lose more time only if he tries to be a little more different. This time, a better run out of turn 4. It's going to get him to the quarter panel with a 12. Again, side by side, slightly for second. Minter to the outside. He's got space in turn 1.
Has got good space, but it's going to be tight here. Minter in a really good spot, but is going for that low side. Going to try and get some moves in here, but it's not going to be close enough. By the way, speaking of people who might have actually had a chance to win this thing, Seth the Merchant, 3 laps down. Yeah. I believe he is still running. He has scored, unfortunately, in last. What a change in his race.
Yeah, Minter with that penalty certainly set him off. And same deal you could say for Anthony Burrows, 1 lap down, as he also got a pit road speeding penalty, just getting a little bit too over-eager there on the braking zone coming into the pit road entry. And frankly, it's not easy to make an entry here at Kansas Speedway. You've got to really hit your marks in a certain way. It's not the most comfortable entry either, so you can't really blame them for trying the best they can to maximize as much time as they could coming on a pit road, and ultimately it came at their expense with the penalty. Look at Tucker Minter, how loose he is on the racetrack, but so is the 13, Rachel. These both now starting to feel the slickness of this Kansas Speedway, and it's ultimately working into a fantastic battle for the lead with 4 to go.
Oh, it really is. This is going to be a huge finish. I can't wait to see what these guys pull off, because it's going to be electric regardless. We're going to see some really late, exciting dives, and I think these guys might... Oh, I hope we don't get green white. This is going to be a great run to green. But I will tell you one thing. These trucks are loose AF right now. They are so loose. And these tires are dying.
They're holding on to the last couple of breaths that they have, and they only have a little bit of time left. 3 laps to go. There's Justin Norwood, a lap truck down low. So hopefully he'll stay out of the way. We'll see what happens as Budafoco and Minter get closer and closer. It appears as though Falkingham has fallen out of the conversation for P2 or P1. Brandon McKissick is slowly closing in on these guys. It may not be over quite yet for guys third on back, but here we come. 2 laps to go. Just only 3 miles left from the virtual Kansas Speedway. They continue to close in on Norwood, but Minter to the back bumper of Daniel Budafoco in turn 1.
This could be the big story here. What's Minter got for this one? The dark horse might be the one that comes through here and bites the victory carrot. That analogy sucks, but you get the point.
He's going to send the bumper in 3 and 4, going to duck a little bit lower to get some clean air. But at the moment, it's Daniel Budafoco, the man of the white flag, one more time from the virtual Kansas Speedway. Minter, a former winner at the Richmond Raceway. We saw him dominate the last segment of that event to take his first win of 2022. Budafoco has seen some shining moments, but he's yet to find his way to victory lane. Here comes Tucker Minter to the inside at the entry of turn 3. Minter will slide ahead. Budafoco will have one last chance to answer. Out of turn 4, Budafoco hits the wall. It's Tucker Minter, 2 wins in 2022.
That is how you steal a win.
Wow.
He ran up and mugged him. I thought this was Budafoco's race. I thought he had it. Falkingham was so strong. Then Budafoco came along, and oh my god, Minter was just like, excuse me, here's a knife, give me your wallet.
What a move by Tucker Minter. It only took 2 corners when mostly every other pass, Rachel, took 1 to 2 laps. Minter chose the moment. Minter found the speed. And while Budafoco had the chance to come back on the outside in 3 and 4, Tucker Minter had moved him a little wide. Budafoco had no opportunity to come back by the time they entered the tri-oval to the start-finish line. And it's Logitech G Altus Esports with once again another win. Make it 4 wins in the 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series for this team and this team alone. And it's Tucker Minter being the first repeat winner out of them all.
I think Seth was hoping it'd be him, but no, that 5 truck, at least one of their guys comes home with a win today, and they are going to be loving that. That was a fantastic run.
Minter will burn it down. Bunch of drivers alongside to celebrate. And you gotta give props to Daniel Budofoko, who held his first place spot for so long, playing a lot of defense against this charging Tucker Minter. Unfortunately, Falkingham and McKissick had been too far back to even make a move. But look at that move, Rachel. We didn't see that all too often. A charge out of turn 2 in the same lane as the driver right in front. Usually it's a guy on the inside that loses the ground and the guy on the outside that makes the big run to complete a pass. But Minter had closed his way, used the draft to his advantage, and that's a textbook pass, sliding up the track in turns 3 and 4, and that gives enough time for Minter to clear the 13 and get to the race win. It's his second win in this 2022 Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Tucker Minter now has one at a short track and one at an intermediate. He's going to be intensely happy. We'll see if we have a chance to talk to him in victory lane tonight. From America's Heartland, Daniel Budofoko just short at the end of it, but got to give props to the 13. Did well all night long after starting 5th. Daniel Falkingham started first, unfortunately fell back in that last run to the battle between the top 2, but I feel like he's going to have nothing to complain about. This should get him over the hump to clear for the top 70 to end up into round number 2 of the Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series after Charlotte Motor Speedway in 2 weeks. What a run by Brandon McKissick, 15th to 4th, plus 11 since the drop of the green. He ends up in 4th. Boyd Hogan, a solid charge for the A truck as well. A great evening for him as he lines up the top 5. Tyler Gary ends up P6 after starting 9th. Jody Lopez Jr. had a very fast number 4 F-150, started 14th. He ends up 7th at the checkered flag. Kenny Brady in the 10 ends up in P8. Omar Diallo is able to make one of the largest moves, if not the hardest charge of this race, 25th to 9th. And Casey Tucker, Rachel Whiteford completes the top 10.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And 11th place is Navarro there in that spot. That is Andrew Navarro with Blaze Crawford in 12th. Michael Koza Jr. in the 13th spot, with Michael Pfeiffer in 14th. Matt Danson 15th, with Parker White in 16th after his strategy call there. Brad Davies in the 17th spot, huge jump there from 33rd. Jake Nichols in 18th, Justin Bolton in 19th, and Drew Ferenza in 20th.
Look at the drivers 21st on back, some of them having unfortunate ends to very quick races. Alex McCollum started 18th, ends up 21st, not the standout race for the driver of the 11 tonight. Will Klein ends up 22nd. Joel Blewett is 23rd at the drop of the checkered. Kyle Myers is 24th at the end of it. Trevor Edwards in the 22 is the last one to wrap up the top 25. And then comes a lot of trucks who would stay it out. Marcus Ruckman in the 16 aimed for a one-stop approach, but basically got freight trained by all the fresh tire trucks around him. Same deal for Landon Huffman, who ends up 27. Not a representative finishing result for both of those guys who end up doing so well throughout most of this event. Will Cooley, same deal for him. A lot of pace to start. Ultimately ends up 28th. Unfortunately, Jonathan Delaney, who started 3rd, is 29th. He's the last driver in the lead lap, and then comes a slew of guys who ended up with pit road speeding penalties and ended up one lap down, or worse. Anthony Burrows got a pit road speeding penalty midway through the race. He is 30th. Larry Pace is 31st. Justin Norwood got lapped near the end for 2 laps down in 32nd. And then it's Michael P. Frisch and Seth the Merchant, 33rd, 34th. Both of them also ending up with pit road speeding penalties to set them behind the 8 ball. So that's your full running order, but it's our chance to come back to the spotlight. P1, Tucker Minter, his second win in this 2022 Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season. Tucker, after staying behind Budofoko, how did you manage to keep the patience, number 1, but also number 2? Walk us through the emotions of that pass in 3 and 4 for the win.
Yeah, I knew that I was way faster than them with how I was running them down, and I knew it was going to be kind of a waiting game, trying to let them make mistakes so I could get by them. Just with how hard it is to pass here, you know, we're carrying so much mid-corner speed that even to slide job somebody is really difficult. So I knew I had to like set them up on exit of a corner and whatever, and try to get the perfect run on them to slide them. I was feeling a little bit downtrodden when I guess it was Falkingham, when he was holding me up for a little bit, and then I really thought I blew it when I got to his outside and I got loose when I hit the bump, and then he cleared back in front of me. I thought I lost my opportunity, but I'm super pumped. It was just everything kind of worked out that it was going to be a last lap move. I wanted to make it earlier, but we were getting towed by a lap car, and I wasn't getting the pull towards him that I knew I needed to make a legitimate pass attempt. So I was just trying my hardest to get to his bumper, and that just happened to be on the last lap.
And that move ultimately pivotal to this win. It's your second here in this 2022 campaign. One at Richmond. The way that race unfolded, it looked like you dominated the last section of that race. And then comes tonight where you were on the two-stop strategy like most of the field, and then it's the last lap pass at the end. I mean, how does it feel to not only take 2 wins in this series so far in round one, but to do so well consistently, not only with yourself, but with your team over 2022 so far as you guys are closing in on round one?
It really feels fantastic. We really wanted to get pole this week, and Seth ended up just missing it, and so that was rather heartbreaking to start the race. But to come from 10th, and then I feel like me and Jordy were really methodical with how we were positioning ourselves to get to the front. We were playing it really smart, which I think is going to bode well for round two if we get caught in a situation like that. And I mean, everybody at Altus does such an awesome job. I feel like I really don't know why we weren't on pole because I feel like it must have been wind. We were ripping and qualifying, but and then the race, I really wasn't sure how fast we were actually going to be in race because we focused so much on Q. But in the end, I mean, everybody here is so good. Merch put in a lot of work this week, and I just tweaked a little bit off of what he did. He was insane tonight, honestly. It was unfortunate he got an unsafe entering pit road penalty, or else he definitely would have been right there with me and I guess both the Daniels.
Well, it's a second win in the series, and ultimately, we knew you were going to be part of the top 70 for round two. This ultimately adding a lot more insurance. On behalf of our team, Tucker, want to congratulate you on your win here from the Kansas Speedway, and of course, wishing you the best of luck for Charlotte in 2 weeks and round two later this summer. Again, congratulations.
Thanks, guys, and thanks to my family for watching and for Logitech G Altus Esports and VRS and all of our amazing partners that help us get on the track for Red Pro.
It's Tucker Minter who takes win number 2 this year and does it in the final corners from the virtual Kansas Speedway. We've got second place Daniel Budafoco, Rachel, who came up just short, but you got to give props to a fantastic run from the 13.
Amazing run indeed. Daniel, heartbreaking there at the end, but a very dominant performance by your truck tonight.
Yeah, I mean, everybody at North Force Racing did an amazing job, preparing for this. Yesterday, I was really stressed out because we really didn't feel that good in dirty air. And then we made a lot of adjustments to help that, and we got a lot better. And our qualifying setup got even better, and we just kept plugging away and kept focused, and we all did a really great job. And it's all thanks to everybody at North Force Racing. Vince Marsh and Parker White, they really did a good job with all the setup work and having a great big help. David, for being the amazing spotter that he is, he did a fantastic job. And Vince was on the box too, so he was awesome with that. Yeah, I wasn't sure with the fuel strategy there. I thought it was too cold to have a one stopper, and I was unsure. But then seems like we made the right move there and committed to two.
Awesome. We'll have to call it there, but amazing run here tonight. Gonna be feeling good going into this last round.
Thank you very much. And before I go, just want to say a big thank you to JDR Graphics for sponsoring me. JD Laird for doing all that he does. He's helped me a lot. Get on to iRacing. I want to say a big thank you to my family, my friends for all the great support. Once again, North Source Racing, SRD, you guys at the booth for putting on great productions here for the Top Split iRacing series, and just everybody who's been a part of this journey coming from Heat over to iRacing. Came one spot short, but in game go, we're in the top 70. We're just going to keep these good runs, and I'm just really happy with all of that. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Daniel Budafoco, coming home today in second.
Thank you.
So
And next
it
up, I
is
believe
Daniel
we've got
Budafoco.
Daniel
Oh,
Falkingham with you, Kenneth Bueno.
Sorry about that, Rachel. But we've got third place Daniel Falkingham in the 12th, who ends up just short of the race win also and fell back in that last run. But Daniel, I mean, a very fast Chevrolet Silverado for you. And you posted on Twitter earlier tonight that this was basically going to be a race most notable for keeping yourself above that top 70 as close as you were coming out of Dover Motor Speedway. What are your thoughts? What are your reflections after a very solid Kansas Speedway race tonight?
Yeah, I'm just first of all, I am very happy with how well I ran. I definitely gave me the confidence I needed. Feel like I was lacking a little bit of that in testing the last 2 weeks, but we definitely found a lot of speed late yesterday and today. We found a lot of qualifying speed. I was very happy to put it on the pole. I was kind of shocked as well, but we definitely found some late qualifying speed today, and that that just hats off to everyone in North Force Racing who puts in the work each and every week. Dave, Vince, Parker, and Dan as well. And just everyone, Tyler, everyone, all my teammates who all chip in each and every week. I just cannot thank them enough for all they do behind the scenes to give me the confidence to run up front like I did tonight. Glad we could put on a show for all you, me, Dan, Seth, Tucker, all those guys up front. It was a blast. But like I said, we got some great points tonight. I really wanted to win that thing badly, but in the end of the day, we need points, especially for how my season's gone. We're just above that cut, so this is gonna be a huge boost. Help me to breathe a little bit going into Charlotte next week. But overall, I am very, very satisfied. I'm disappointed, but I'm very satisfied as well.
And of course, we were on the edge of our seat watching you, Daniel, and Tucker go at it with the three trucks in the final segment. And ultimately, this finish is going to get you over that hump. Charlotte is going to be a lot of fun in 2 weeks' time. But Daniel, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us again. On behalf of our team, I want to congratulate you on this third place finish. We hope to see you from the home of NASCAR before round 2.
I appreciate it, Kenneth. One thing you guys put on the broadcast, I want to quickly shout out my sponsors. January 31st, First Rate Bailoff 207 for all their support for the last few years, and especially here in Road to Pro. Shout out to Presley, who was on the box for me, Presley Gilson. And of course, again, everybody at North Force Racing. Also, shout out to Cosmin, Splash Go Graphics for making this beautiful paint for me. And just all the fans who watch us and all friends and family who support me each and every week.
So it's Daniel Falkingham who closes in on our top 3 here tonight from the virtual Kansas Speedway. We come back to action in 2 weeks' time, just before Memorial Day weekend, May 26th, 9 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/Podium Esports. We'll have our coverage of the final race in round 1 of the 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. So for Gary Sexton, John Theodore, Ryan Bauer, Dougie Beard, Michael Hall, Nicholas Weatherby, and my colleague Rachel Whitefer for making this all happen on our coverage tonight, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Saying thank you so much for watching our coverage up top split for the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Kansas. For now, though, it's a 2 to go restart in split 2. We'll see you there.